Hello, I'm Michal Berlinger. I was the programmer of Pilgrims, and today I'm going to talk you about the making of Pilgrims. So let me quickly introduce myself. I was working as a programmer on the game like Mimpi Dreams and Silicon Jelly, which was released in 2015. I was working on Blue Effect VR for a company Diver in 2016 released. I was also working on some own projects, like Under Leaves, which was released in 2017, and Hravouka, you will probably know it most like with the Czech name, which was released this year. And in 2017, I joined Amanita Design. So let me just quickly introduce Amanita. This is a studio which is probably most popular because of the game Machinerum, which was released 10 years ago in 2009. Then there was, in 2012, there was the game Botanicula, which was a game by Jaromír Plachy and like his own team. Then there was a game in 2016, Summer's 3. It was again from the team, which were the guys who were working on the Machinarium. And 2018, there was a Chachel, again the team with Jaromír Plachy. And our latest game is called Pilgrims, and it was released about a month or two ago on PC and Apple Arcade. The Pilgrims were made mostly by the team members of Samorost and Machinarium. The core team was Jakub Dvorský, who was making the design and the graphics. Václav, all the guys are sitting here. Václav was doing the animations, and there were Tomáš Dvořák, two of them, which were doing sounds and music, and I was programming that. In Amanita, we have currently around 22 people. Like there are two new teams, so together we have like four teams working on 4 games. We will talk in a detail about how the Pilgrims were made. Pilgrims is a playful adventure game in a fairy tale world. Like, I hope that maybe you played it or at least you see the trailer, but let's see the trailer now.
Yeah. Goodbye.
In Pilgrims, you can collect various items and then use them in any location on any character. So there is a ton of combinations, and you will always see some sort of outcome. Almost every obstacle or the puzzle in the game has several possible solutions, and it's entirely up to you what you will choose. Okay. But even if you pick the wrong option, which won't help you to solve the current situation, you will at least be able to enjoy some funny animations, a micro story of its own. And you can even switch the characters and then try the same items, with different outcomes, which reflects the character of your hero. Our goal was to create a playful experience and encourage a player to try some weird stuff, not only the logical, obvious solutions. The original idea comes from the card minigame from Summer's 3. The goal here is to catch 4 animals by combining cards and to watch the outcome of different card combinations. Like, this minigame was created using like 90 different animations that were made just specifically for that. I think we can just let the light like that. That's okay. So what was the original basic concept? What was the initial idea? The core elements are that our character is on the left side and the opponent character is on the right side. On the bottom, there is a card deck for the player to combine. Another thing you can see on this sketch are some light RPG elements, such as health, strength, intoxication. And the game was designed from the beginning as a premium game, primarily for mobile phones. So you can see that there is the picture is in portrait by default. The next part of the game should be a movement on the map and a world exploration. We were even thinking about the game as like a mini open world game. And the last part should have been about camping and sitting at the bonfire where characters would talk to each other and we learn their stories. And this is the part that didn't make it beyond the concept phase, and it is not in the final game. Now, I will show you some early prototypes. This is a prototype after 2 months of development, and it contains walking around the map. There are some basic interactions. We used only key poses instead of animations because it was too early for animations, but we wanted to see how the animation sequencing could work. There are also some experimental RPG elements, as you can see, like there's a health, alcohol, combat, and there is also the option to select if you play the card, or if I play the card on my character, or if I play it on the opponent character. And lastly, which you will see, was like really nice feature there, that if your character get like killed, then then now he's like slowing the party, so like everybody needs to wait for him, and during that time we needed to make an important decision if we are going to make an RPG or an adventure game. We were not sure if the humor and our way of storytelling would translate well into a larger scope game or an RPG. So the result is an unconventional adventure game which is not point and click, it is not linear, and every situation has several solutions. And there is even some tiny story branching. So the goal was actually to evolve the adventure genre which is close to us. This is another prototype. This is 7 months in development, and it contains like work of 3 months of animating. It looks like the similar situation to the previous one, but with proper animations. So at that time, we knew that the system of sequencing and animations works, but we needed to make most of the required animations to have complete overview about the world and its story. So it wasn't possible to playtest the game as a whole at that time, since the animated situations was the core of the gameplay, and we had to wait for the content. And now I would like to show you the development overview. On the left, there is the version from 2 months. In the middle, there is the version from 7 months of development, and on the right, there is the release version. So I tried to capture the similar situation, how you can see like it evolved. In the first video, there are only the key poses. In the middle, you can see some of the basic animation, and see that like if you play the broom, if you play the broom, on the bear, it doesn't lead anywhere, right? Which is the same as here. Yeah. So notice that even when we are not making any progress, like using the broom on the bear, we got a nice little story, and we don't have to be upset, and we can try like other items, other things, and also know that the sounds are really helping a lot with the atmosphere and the story. So let's see how Jakub made the art for the game. This is the development of the bear character visuals. You can see these are the character sketches and illustrations, but the graphics has to be cut out and put on a skeleton to work with animation. So the animation versions looked always a little bit different, and this is the difference between free illustration and character design for in-game use. So I think that you can see the differences. Another example of character development is the Bandit. And when these first characters were made, all the characters were drawn in the final art style. The art style of a location has also developed a lot. And everything in the game is drawn on Apple iPad using Apple Pencil. This is the MaxiPacific version. And we are almost getting there. And that's it. That's the final version. So at the end, Jakub uses rough pencil drawing and dirtiness and textures. So that's how the art style ended. Now I would like to talk a little bit about our sources of inspiration. Like in the beginning, we were thinking about Pilgrims more like a band of vagabonds wandering the world without any particular goal, just searching for food and drinks, mostly alcohol. But when we started designing the world and the story, it very naturally shifted to the classical Czech fairy tale world, but it didn't matter. The Eastern European fairy tale world fits the original idea we had perfectly, so we just stick with that. Part of the art is inspired by medieval illuminations, playing cards, and maps. And the old maps are very close to Jakub's heart. Like he's drawn a lot of world and maps during his childhood, and this is one of them, for example. And another source of inspirations are animated movies, and there is an effort to build on the tradition of Eastern European animation school in all Amanita games. Here, for example, this is Czech illustrator Jiří Šalamoun and Russian animator Yuri Norstein. And we have to mention Josef Lada, who illustrated a lot of traditional Czech fairy tale books, which included typical fairy tale characters like the devil or the Hasterman, which are both in our game. And we also knew about our boundaries. Like, for example, these jokes were way past these boundaries of what we wanted to take in Pilgrims. These are cartoon jokes from Jan Vyčítal. So, now back to our game and to our finding. We did a batch of proper playtests in the middle of the development when it was still missing a lot of content. Another batch was done about 5 months before release, when we had still a lot of time for small design changes and polishing. Actually, these playtests worked pretty well and helped a lot. For example, during the first batch of playtest, it was possible, as I said, to choose if you are going to play the card on our character on the left or on the opponent on the right. Let's take a look at a very rough estimate of combinations. Like, we knew that there will be a lot of combinations. We can't brute force it. So we prepared a system that combined specific and more generic animation sequences. So when you play the card, the game checked if there is a special sequence for that specific condition you are playing. If there is not, it will use default consequence for character or the played item. The goal is that everything could be played on everything, everywhere, and it works. Still, there will be some sequences that are not maybe so fun to watch. And We decided to change the design that you can't choose the target of the played card, which kind of doubles the chance that the sequence you will see will be fun and less generic. It also helped the players as this feature wasn't obvious enough. Like for this roughly 1,600 sequences, we used 382 animations that are combining together in the system. What also helped a lot is that sounds, unlike the animations, are separate for each character. So even if the different character plays the same animation, the sounds make it feel different. For every location in the game, there is a sheet like this, where all the events and all the consequences. In the left column, you can see all the items in the game that can be used in that location. And in white cells, there is the animation sequence that should be played. So, for example, the events should show different behaviors of our characters. So for example, Granny behaves differently than the Bandit. You can see in the table. And now I will show you this particular part, how it looks translated to the game. So you can see, like, if you play the Granny, like, she's scared, and then Dragon starts talking. But if you play a Bandit, like, it will have a different character. So, and like we got the sheet, but then we needed to translate the info from the sheet to the game. So this is how it looks in the actual game. Pilgrims is Amanita's first available game made in Unity engine. All previous games were made in Flash, and all of our current projects in development are running Unity right now. Like there's like still one project that is taking animation data from Flash. So I was using a lot of scriptable objects as data containers together with the plugin which is called Odin Inspector and Serializator, because I needed polymorphism to serialized. And every line in the sheet needs to be translated in an inspector like this, as I said. You can see that each event is defined by its conditions and then the set of the consequences, which is the kind of animation sequence or other events that the game will play, like you lose a card, or you add a card, you add a character, or whatever. There are about 800 manually set event boxes like this in the whole game. Another problem we saw during the first playtests was that players had an orientation problem. They were thrown in the game without any knowledge of it, and it quickly became lost in the vast amount of locations and items. So we decided to open the game gradually. We restricted the opening. This is the problem, guys. Like, now you don't see that. So we decided to open the game gradually, and we restricted the opening area just to a few locations. And this is how it looks in the final game. So the rest of the map is covered, and only 5 locations are accessible. We also used this restricted area as a small invisible tutorial, which I will show you now in a more detail. So the very first thing the player has to do in the game is to play the card in the location, which is the very basic and very core game mechanic that he will do all the time through the game. So the only real tutorial element here is the arrow showing us to drag the card into the place. Like originally, the game was starting with clicking on the tent, but we find that starting the game with the core mechanic is much better. Now the animation will notify us about the map button. So like we know we can click it and we can now go to the map. So that's like how we learned to play a card and to go to the map. After leaving a location, we are taken to the map screen. The only thing player can do here is to click. So they can walk and enter our location. There is nothing else for player can do. So like he very easily learned that what he can do. And when he is exploring in the other locations, for example, in this location, there is a significant item on the scene, the hoe. So like player naturally tries to click it, so he finds out that he can collect the items from the location. And like for example, like if you know, like the potatoes appears, and now he like again click them and again collect. So like he's learning that he can touch the locations. And then we combine all the knowledge in this scene when he needs to boil the potatoes in the pot, and after that you are ready and you can go to the bandit. What the player learned, like he learned playing the cards, he played the characters, walking on the map, collecting items from locations, listening to hints in the bubbles, and that all using just only one drawn arrow. Pilgrims is primarily a mobile game, and this fluent onboarding is extremely important. Like we wanted to be sure from playtest that there is no place to get stuck in this tutorial, that everybody like will be able to play it through like really smooth. So after you give the potatoes to the bandit, which is the end of the tutorial, we will open the whole map to the player. And now that the player learned all the basic gameplay elements, they can enjoy the open world exploration on their own, which otherwise could be easily frustrating. And even during the game, we unlock some content so the player does not feel overwhelmed. There are locations where the bandit plays the key role. So visiting these locations doesn't make much sense before the bandit joins your party. So because of that, we added a drawbridge location that locks the castle and the dragon location until we get the bandit to the party. So these are unlockable locations. Player now has the bandit card, which they can play meaningfully in these locations, and we are lowering the chance that the player will get stuck or see too much generic content in this location if he don't have the bandit in the party. Another problem was the understanding of the possibility to combine characters and items, because we saw in playtest that players perceive the character cards and the item cards in the very same way. And we needed to clearly communicate that the character cards and the item cards are playing different roles. So we added a special frame to character cards, and we even added a small pictograms to the frames that show some hints about the character story background, or can maybe help you a little bit if you focus on them. And at the same time, the different frames for different characters suggest that each character may behave differently. So now let's talk a little bit about the size of the game. The original ambition was there will be several maps about this size, and the player could easily walk from one to another. But back to our numbers about the world. Like these are the numbers for one world, for example. This is like rough estimate for 2 worlds. Like you will be adding like a few characters, few locations, few items, and like if you end it in like 4 worlds, that means like a really lot of combinations. So adding about 3 worlds could easily mean adding 10 times more content. The worlds would need to be independent, or we would have to design a way to reduce the amount of items the players takes from one world to another, which would be solvable, but complicated. And it would mean more prototyping and a lot more content. And So let's take a look at two contemporary popular mobile games. This is a game Reigns. This is like very simple controls, high accessibility, primarily for mobiles, but released on PC as well. It has several sequels that are similar to the original game. Another example is a Florence, which is a short narrative game. It is released on mobiles only, and it had a very good reception, even that the game was really short. The players valued short, intense, and accessible experience. So we preferred to go the same way as Reigns, and eventually make a sequel afterwards if we see if it's popular, rather than spend many years developing a huge mobile game. And like in a Florence, we didn't want to artificially extend the playtime. The goal was to make an hour of quality and fun gameplay, so at the end we decided we stick on a map of this size. So the game can be finished in about 45 minutes, which we knew during the development based on the playtest, and we agreed on that this is fine. The game is meant to be played repeatedly, and we even discovered that players are enjoying the second run more than the first. In the first playthrough, people are mostly goal-oriented, like they want to finish the game. But in the next playthrough, they are more relaxed and willing to experiment, which was actually the original goal of the game. To encourage the player to explore, there are 45 achievements in the game, and collecting all of them takes about 2 to 3 hours, which we think is a solid playtime for a premium mobile game. Actually, the playtime of a speedrun is now around 3 minutes, I think. And so, now we have the system in which we can quite easily create a sequel and reuse a lot of technology and animations, but there is no plan to make a sequel right now. And as I said, there are achievements in the game that should motivate the player to play again. And after finishing the game, the players see something like this and realize they haven't seen most of the game content. And we immediately show them the play again button. We also have the button for speeding up the animations in the game. So if you are playing it again and again, it makes the exploration much faster and more fluid. To further motivate the player to replay the game, we show them a hint that one of the quests can be finished in a different way, which is the only major branching in the game. So the image on the left is shown if the bandit got the king's crown, and give us a hint that we can maybe get a treasure from the dragon by giving him the princess. Because, anyway, being a king is not always so fun. So, now let's talk a little bit about animations. They are all made, not all, but the basic animations they are made in a software called Spine, and then we imported the animations from Spy to the Unity. It is like a classic 2D cutout skeletal animation, and we are using different skins for different character on the same skeleton, as you can see here. And characters are different even if they share the same skeleton. I think that this is something which is really good in the game, because it helps that they have differences in head or body size or nose. So even if they share the same skeleton, they don't seem like they are on the same skeleton. And two characters in the game are also scaled. So the bear is scaled a little bit up and the dwarf is scaled a little bit down. So it creates some issues, like this scaling, because if you are connecting animations, there might be some slight problems, but no big deal, so we use it. And Thanks to skeletons and skins, we can create various combinations of sequences, and I will show you now the scenes that didn't make it to the game. Or not.
Cinkili, cinkili. Bim bam.
Ups.
Fuj, Pajksol, pojahnus. Mám tu s tebou a zlý pryč. Mír a žádný váleček. No, to jsem zvědavý. No, jo.
Of course, the scenes are created specifically for that video and never were actually in the game. But it demonstrates the way we can create a lot of new combinations very easily and new stories very easily. Like, I just take the animations we have in the game and make this mashup like very quickly. Alongside the skeletal animations, there are also classic frame-by-frame animations that are, you can also see that they are combined with the skeleton animation in some parts. So now a little bit about the voices in the game. In the previous games, we were using constructed languages that had no actual meaning to them. So for example, let's see Huchel. Yeah, so for Pilgrims, it began with innocent, more or less neutral language like this.
Andy, Anda.
Oh, maybe.
But then we started recording the voices of the Bandit with actor Miloš Dvořáček, and he started using some actual Czech words.
Jo, je to krásně hašené. Příjemný to je.
And then the other voice actors followed, so at the end it ends in something like this.
Já ti ukážu.
Hlava, břicho,
Nechci
leva,
toho,
prava.
jo?
Táhni ty.
No, hele.
And during the long building times, I created a website with a selection of the best lines from the game.
Mankote, co to zase je toto?
No, podívejme.
Já ti dáme to a mete to tak techta.
I'm sorry for the non-Czech speaking audience here.
Jo, tohle.
The good thing about this is that it can be used as a replacement of conventional communication. It was tested in our office and homes, and it works pretty well. So, like, you should definitely try it too. Yeah, that's if you want to see it, that's the website. There are 2,184 animation, audio clips for voices and sound effects in the whole game, which is like pretty high number for a small game like this. The voice actors are a mix of professional actors, game journalists, and members of Amanita Design. And the language of the voices are in Czech, but it doesn't matter because it doesn't carry any important message, and it is there just for fun, like another layer. A lot of foreigners don't know Czech, so they just think it is some kind of gibberish, and it is totally fine. And the music also developed as a placeholder. We started with the music from Neverhood, like
Potatoes love, my gravy love, potatoes love.
or And then there was the attempt from Adel Achman, the artist of Machinarium and Summer's 3. Like after finishing Summer's 3, the guys were even thinking about switching roles, like for the next game. It's like everybody will make something they can't make. So like this was the start, but in the end, it was Floex, aka Tomáš Dvořák, who composed and produced all the music for Pilgrims. He was joined by his friends and guests on bass, clarinet, and guitar. For example, this is Jakub Tengler recording the music for the intro. This is a sound recording in the middle of the summer. Jiří Javůrek. And finally, there are 35 music loops in the game. All the music loops are synchronized, so they can be played over each other. And I will show you the basic concept of transitions, so now listen carefully. You can see like there's a one team playing, and if you enter another location, the new team goes up, and the old one will. And there are also many exceptions to the system to work with the current game atmosphere. So like from time to time, we don't use the system, we just like fade the music out or something like that. During the development, we entered into agreement with Apple that Pilgrims should launch on their new service called Apple Arcade. It was financially interesting, and there was a potential that the game could easily reach a lot of people. And that happened. During the first month, we registered about 160,000 installs across all the platforms we released. Among other things, because of the arcade release, we needed to support different platforms and resolutions. Like all other Amanita games are working and selling great on mobile devices, but they are not primarily developed for them, and they are losing some details on the small screens. So Pilgrims is the first Amanita game that was fully designed to be comfortably playable on mobile devices. You can see how we made the design scalable, so it fits various devices. You can also notice that the location background is trimmed on some resolutions, which is fine because like we focus the action in the center of the background. Yeah. So like these are all platforms and all the resolutions but you can like make whatever you want with the screen, and it will always kind of work. On mobile, you can play in a portrait mode only, but on iPads. On iPads, we wanted to give the player the freedom how to play it, so you can rotate your device during the play, and it will like nicely adapt to the style you want. And one thing that didn't make it to the final release is this cardboard prototype based also on the cards from Summer's 3 minigame. And because of the gamepad and controls unification, at the end we decided to give up on this idea and scratch it from the project. And there was no promotion before the game was released. it was like a complete surprise. One thing was that we didn't want to hype people too much because of such a small game. The other thing was the timing difficulties with Apple, but the reviews are very positive, and we received the good reviews even abroad. We didn't expect reception that good. Like, we were confident we had a nice game, but weren't sure it would appeal to the people in the West. And some people are complaining about the game length, but everyone is generally enjoying it. And I take the complaint as a compliment, because it means that we created a fun game and people want more. So the game took 2 years to develop, so it was the smallest of current Amanita projects. For comparison, Samorost 3 took about 5 years, and Creeks has already been in development for 7 years or so. And speaking of Creeks, this will be the next Amanita game made by a different team, and it will launch in spring next year. So let's see the trailer so you can look forward to it.
First of all, I love your games, the art style, the mechanics, the story. It's a combination of something different that we don't see in this industry often enough, in my opinion. So that's kudos to you and the team, of course. My question is, why in Pilgrims not support landscape on mobile as well? Why only for tablets?
It's like, it sucks just. Like, it is too small. It doesn't work. Like, I tried it.
Okay, another question?
Like actually, like, you don't want to put like bad things in your game, right? Like, and the landscape like is really it wasn't like good enough. So yeah.
Thanks for the talk. I want to ask, how is it releasing a game on Steam, like an hour-long game on Steam, in consideration of the refund policy?
A refund? We did any refunds? No. Like, I think that the people are not refunding the game. We have no problem with that. But the thing is that from the beginning, the idea was that it is really going to be primarily for mobiles. So like, we developed that with primarily for mobiles, and the Steam, this was just like a bonus, like, because like we saw like, okay, the game is nice, maybe a lot of people on PCs would enjoy it too. So like, and it is like, because of arcade, we still need to make a build for Macs. So like, we need to solve how it would look on desktops. So then why not to release it on the Steam too? Yeah.
So my question is simple. How was the cooperation with Apple? Did you have like full freedom, or did you have to meet some conditions, or did they give you some feedback?
Like, we had complete freedom. There was just there were just some technical requirements that like we need to use the Game Center and iCloud stuff and this, but it was like basically like we expect that, like this was like obvious. They will want it, and yeah, like we do have the freedom, and like there was like they did some QA, and there was like a little feedback, but nothing major.
All right. Thank you very much, Michal. He'll be around, so you can ask him questions later, maybe here in the hall. Thank you again.
Thank you.